Sports. Yeah. So I'm going to do a quick little video here. I'll try to keep this as quick as possible just to go over. So let's just say the NHL says we're not playing. We're not playing this year. And you know what? Just to keep it simple, I'm not going to play next year either. Because I've seen that comment like, yeah, they should just wipe out this year and wipe out next year. It's not that simple. And taking out this year's playoffs isn't that simple either. So let's just go through it. And I'm going to make the comparison of other leagues. Because sports in North America, it's an issue. It is. And as much as we want to frame it as just being millionaires and billionaires, there are a lot more people involved in that. So with the hockey TV deals, they have a deal until 2021 that pays them $200 million a year from NBC. So that deal ends next year. And $200 million a year sounds like a lot. Split between 31 teams, it isn't. But thankfully, Rogers overpaid. So in Canada, it's a $500 million a year deal until 2026. So added together, that's $700 million a year for NHL. Divided by 31, that's $22.58 million per team. So you got to think it's a 50-50 split between the teams and the players. That's $11 million worth of cap money right there. It's $11 million per team that players will not make and that the teams will not make. And whether they claw it back in terms of the salary cap or whether it's with escrow, whatever they do, that's money that wouldn't come in. So if they say we're going to shut things down, the question that's out there is if they say, well, we're not going to play out the rest of the season, these companies have every right to say, well, then you didn't fulfill your contractual obligation. We are entitled to some of that money back. And they are. For the same reason that you as a ticket holder might be sitting there right now and saying, I want a refund on this ticket because I can't go and watch that game. The networks can say, hey, we never broadcast those games. A lot of the money we gave you was for playoffs. We never saw playoffs. We didn't get to sell the ad space. We didn't get to show it. So we're not going to pay this. We're going to claw the money back. So now what happens is that's an even bigger share than this because now not only would they not get next year's $700 million, but they lose some of this year's $700 million. So now it's what, maybe $800, maybe $900 million, almost $1 billion that the league would be losing if you say we're just going to wait till everything's safe before we have hockey back. So, and again, that may be what ends up happening. I'm just saying it's not that simple because you also have the CBA ends in 2021. Oh yes, the collective bargaining agreement ends next year. So if the players and the owners do what the players and the owners tend to do when it comes to their deals, you're going to see both sides dig in. No, we're wanting this. So maybe the owners say we want a 60-40 split. Based on where things are right now, we can't afford to operate with a 50-50 split. And the players say, no, we already gave back. We were making 57%. We dropped it to 50. Forget it. We're not dropping to 40. So then you end up with another lockout, potentially. Just throwing that out there. Worst case scenario all around. You lose it, and then you lose this. So collective bargaining agreement ends. And then in 2021, we don't have a 2021-2022 season because they can't agree on the economics. They can't agree on anything. And so we don't have hockey for the next 2 years. So we wouldn't have a Stanley Cup champion in 2020 or 2021, right? Now, the other side of this too is there's teams that operated at a loss last year. Anaheim, New York Islanders, Winnipeg, Nashville, Columbus, Arizona, and Florida. Those are arranged in order, according to Forbes, by the one that lost the least down to the one that lost the most. So Florida lost the most. People are like, that's fine, we can lose Florida. But if you have this money disappear, collective bargaining agreement ends, and there's no kind of cost certainty, and you have all 7 of these teams go, well, we can't afford to operate, including Anaheim, you lose Winnipeg in that. So this is where Winnipeg fans go, wait, what? Yeah, see, for Winnipeg, with a smaller building, even though your ticket prices are going to be high, your overall revenues are going to be lower. It is a small market. So it is more important for Winnipeg to go further in the playoffs than it is for, say, New York. New York Rangers are gonna operate with a profit basically regardless. So with that in mind, how would people feel about 7 teams leaving the league? And then this is where it gets even trickier. So let's just say 7 teams go, well, as a result of this shutdown, we can't come back. Now you're going into the CBA negotiations going, so you guys are losing 150 players out of your union. We've decided to contract the league down by 150 players. Players aren't going to take that well. Unions generally don't take being told they're going to get a layoff of about a quarter of their members very well. Now, when we compare them to other leagues, because I've seen people saying, well, players in other leagues are ready to just sit out. It makes sense. NFL $6 billion a year this league generates. $6 billion a year from Fox, CBS, ESPN, and DirecTV, and that goes through 2022. So by 2 years from now, you have to think that may end up coming down a bit, but the NFL is still the biggest show in the States. It is a spectacle. It is an absolute spectacle. It's going to stay that way. Major League Baseball generates $1.5 billion a year between ESPN, Fox, and TBS. Their contract's up next year. And baseball players, with the reputation they have for being greedy, and whether that's true or whether it's the owners that are greedy or both, and I'm leaning towards both, it'll be interesting to see whether Major League Baseball makes that kind of money in their next agreement next year. So while hockey's up, so is baseball. And I don't know that you can argue baseball's more popular now than it was 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. I would argue that baseball is in danger. Baseball's in danger of moving into irrelevancy because you have a generation, the generation after mine, that views it as kind of sort of boring. And whether you think it's boring or you don't, there's definitely a generation of people who view it as being kind of a boring sport to watch. So that's out there. Major League Baseball is definitely going to be facing some sort of crisis next year, I think, when it looks at this contract, because again, we're going to be coming out of this or still in it. So either whether we're in it or we're coming out of it. And this is why Major League Baseball is trying to save the season. They likely will sit down with players and go, our contract's up next year, and if we don't have a season this year, it's hard to argue for an agreement next year where we make more money. Keep in mind, while leagues lose money if they don't play, networks, TV stations right now are losing a ton of money. Networks are losing a ton of money because there just isn't the advertising revenue there. I've explained on YouTube that the advertising revenue has dropped substantially during this close down, and it's because you have a lot of companies that aren't operating, and or if they are, they're cutting their budget. So what's the first thing that goes from your budget? Advertising. And so they pull themselves out of the marketplace when it comes to advertising, and you're left with a bunch of Liberty Mutual commercials, which, as funny as they are, it gets kind of repetitive after a while. And then there's the reverse mortgage stuff, and you have, what else? You'll have your fast food and your cars. Car commercials, which are like, yeah, we're all sad right now. Go buy a car. That'll make you feel better. If you're out of work, go buy a car. The logic is unassailable. So, again, there's a lot of networks right now that are looking to cut costs. So whether it's ABC, NBC, CBS, they're all going to be looking to cut costs coming out of this. The NBA is in really good shape. Of the three leagues, the NBA is in the best shape. They have a $2.66 billion deal a year contract with ABC/ESPN as well as TNT, and that goes through 2026. So you have to think by 2026, things should be normal by then, right? And so they're in the best position, even though they don't make anywhere near what the NFL does. They're kind of in the best position out of every team, every league, I should say. The NHL, again, and I just put it on the board again just for comparison, it's $200 million in the States. If it was not for the Canadian contract, which is wildly overpriced, the salary cap would be lower, and there would be greater panic over next year's American contract being up. So the argument has been for years that players are signing contracts looking forward to 2021. A lot of contracts end in 2021 because NHL players and owners and GMs all felt that the new American contract should be at least 3 times what it is now. Probably 600, maybe 700, maybe 800 million. But if they're not on TV between now and 2021, if there's no ratings to go with, if there are other leagues that get things going and the NHL's not in the conversation, they may not even get this. They might not get that at all. And then they might be dealing with Rogers saying, we're not paying $500 million because you didn't put anything on TV. Now, it's easy to look at this and go, well, it's just pure greed. It is. And I understand if people want to take it that way. But this is something that will have economic ramifications for years. And whatever the NHL decides to do from here, it's going to decide their place in the hierarchy when it comes to sports in North America. And right now, they're very clearly 4th out of 4. Now, as a sample of where other revenues have come from and revenues in general, the NHL in 2015-2016 made $4.1 billion. 2016-2017, $4.43 billion. 2017-2018, $4.86 billion. And last season made $5.09 billion. Now, how much they're losing this year, we don't know yet. But it's not going to be a $5.09 billion revenue situation. Now, approximately 36% of the revenues, depending on which numbers you look at, are through gate. So if you subtract gate, 36% taken off of this is a lot, but you're still making about $3 billion overall. $700 million of that is your TV contract. So you put another $700 million dent into this, and that this is the existential crisis the NHL finds themselves in. $559.5 million in 2018-2019 came from sponsorship revenues. Adidas pays $70 million a year in order to be the provider of the NHL jerseys that we wear. And ironically, I'm wearing a Reebok. The Reebok agreement was, I think, $30 million. It was way less. Adidas, the parent company for Reebok, takes it, and it's $70 million. I will pronounce it Adidas because that's how we say it around here. So yeah, that's $70 million of the $559 million. So again, sponsorship revenues, if you don't play, go out too. Because what are they sponsoring then? So, and where this all gets even murkier is the fact that the NHL is very well known for giving money back to communities, donating money to charity. How many fundraisers do we see the NHL do all the time? They've been doing a lot of that right now during this crisis. And youth sports. There are a lot of youth sports that are funded by the NHL and through professional sports through every league. And if a league's not generating any revenue and you take all of that away, you're going to damage the ability of youth sports to survive through this. And there are plenty of kids who have been helped by sports to not end up doing something stupid. So they end up taking up sports and becoming really good at the whole sports thing. And they're not doing something that's destructive with their time. So, you know, they might want to go out and hit that kid in class, but instead they go out and they throw hits on the ice, or maybe they're playing football and that kind of thing. So without professional sports and without, you know, and in this channel's case, it's the NHL, you are now damaging a lot of things going forward. And I'm not saying you can't, you know, that safety is not important. Of course, safety is important. But you know, the communities that are supported through the NHL, the charity work that they do, the youth sports that has helped as well. Keep in mind, a lot of this is tax write-offs. And that's the thing too. Like, yes, there are some genuinely really good people who are owners and who are players, and they do really good things. And there are those that will do it, likely thinking, well, it's a tax write-off, so it's money not going to taxes, and it goes back into the community and it helps people. And so I really think it's easy to oversimplify this. I try not to do that in my daily videos on this, and this is what I think of when it comes to whether or not they're going to play hockey, and this is why I can understand them not saying, well, we'll just give up. Because if they just give up, and they say, all right, and if next season is impacted and nothing happens, their next agreement, their next CBA is in danger, and their next TV agreement in the States, they can just forget it. And they've already been in this position where they haven't had any decent agreement at all. Before that NBC agreement, they had nothing. I remember when they were on OLN was where he's finding, like, it didn't make any sense. And it was like they had this deal where it just that they weren't making any money, and it was really negatively impacting the ability that if you were in the States to even watch hockey, because they might be on a channel that was carried by like 20% of households in the US. Like, it was bad. And if the NHL toys with being forgotten, then we end up back in that. And then that's going to negatively impact both players. It's going to negatively impact owners. And then it's going to trickle down to everything else. So I don't envy them during this time. I don't envy what they're going through and the decisions they're going to have to make, because this is going to be a tough decision. And there is a lot of money, and you can chalk it up to greed, that's fine. But this is all money that some of this ends up going back into communities and ends up going back to people. And this is the livelihood of a lot of people. And professional sports in North America, this is why we're starting to see some minor clawback and comebacks of sports here and there, because it is a large revenue generator. And for networks, if the NHL puts on a product this summer / going into winter and through fall, and they're able to figure out some way to make the Stanley Cup happen, and I always see people saying, I'm not going to watch hockey in July. Okay, but a lot of people will. Record ratings for NASCAR yesterday. Anything that's not Indy related, they've never seen ratings like that. 3.7 million in the U.S. So, right? This is what I've said. Whatever sport figures it out and comes back first, they're going to get 100% of the audience. They're going to get incredible ratings. I watched NASCAR myself yesterday, and I enjoyed it. And I'm going to watch every NASCAR event for the next 2 weeks. If it's on regular TV, I'll watch it. It could be huge. And if the NHL generates a lot of views and a lot of interest, and if they're able to, if the NBA cancels, I think that would make it less likely for the NHL to cancel. One thing that stopped the NHL from canceling was the fact that the Tokyo Olympics were canceled. They were pushed back to 2021, and they went, okay, well, we don't have to worry about losing our audience in August then. So there's a lot of wheels in motion here. We'll see what happens, but let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. I apologize this ended up going as long as it did. But it's important, and I'm just trying to explain this and how this could dramatically affect things. It's one of the reasons I get somewhat irritated when people just go, yep, forget it. Or, just go play already. I'm not on either side. I am not on either side of, yeah, forget it, we'll just go and play and don't worry about it. Or the, forget it, just cancel. There's a lot on the line. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. It's nice out, but I'm in here, and that's the way it works. Thank you guys for everything, and I will talk to you again soon.